Do you find yourself being so constantly distracted by all of the very loud, very influential voices out there? You feel like you're not taking the next step either in your business or creating content or just growing into the person that you want to be. Today's episode with Scott is so impactful for you if that is how you are feeling. We talk through getting to 750 podcast episodes, how Scott uses the strategy not as his number one focus, but as a supplemental tool to encourage people who are trying to find him and trying to get to know him as a way they can understand what his business is about and ultimately work with him. In this episode, we talk through a lot of the additional marketing strategies that you can use that go beyond paying for ads on social media platforms and ways that you can really spend time doing the thing you love, not feel like everything's burning around you all the time. Please join me in welcoming Scott to the podcast. Hello, Scott. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited that you're here. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and a bit about your show.
Yeah, Alicia, thanks so much. I told you just a minute ago, it's a lot of work to put on a podcast. So I'm really, really grateful that you would do this. My name's Scott. Ashley and I have been married a little over 26 years, and we've got 3 kids. One's married, and then we've got 2 at university as we're speaking right now. Actually, they're not there because we just had this massive storm come through. I know you're not supposed to timestamp podcasts, but this is one of those kind of epic things. And power has been out at their school for like 3 or 4 days, and it's going to be out for another week. So we're actually happy to have them home mainly because they cleaned up my yard when they were home. So that was awesome. And then Ashley and I have run a business since 2015. And it's called Business on Purpose. And we do one thing. We do it really well. There's a lot of things we don't do well, but this one thing we do really well. And that is liberate owners from chaos to make time for what matters most. That's what we spend our days doing.
What does that look like? So if someone's like, ooh, interesting, can you give an example of what that liberation might look like for somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So we primarily, it does help to know who this sort of liberation is available to. So we work with business owners between 3 and 100 employees. So the new startup, just kind of conceptual idea, that's not our sweet spot. And the person who's 100 employees and above, that's usually where we get more to corporate consulting and that sort of thing. So that sweet spot between 3 and 100 employees, those are the folks that we know, we love. About 86% of our business is in the construction, architecture, and engineering space. So that's sort of the language that we speak, in the fluency of that language that we speak. But liberation sounds something like this. Somebody will come into us and they'll say, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm throwing a Hail Mary every day in my business. I'm juggling all these balls. I'm dropping all of these plates. We actually diagnosed them with a brand new disease that we came up with called the LLVD disease. It sounds awful, doesn't it? LLVD. All it means is the latest, loudest voice disease. And so many owners are susceptible and infected with just listening to the latest, loudest voice. So much so that I actually titled a book, Let Your Business Burn. There are a lot of fires that are burning in our businesses that 90% of them, if you just let them burn, they would put themselves out. But a lot of times our own ego gets in the way. We want to kind of feel like a superhero. And so we go rush and put these things out. Meanwhile, we're not working on the business. We're just constantly in the weeds of the business. And so what we do is we've got a whole roadmap methodology that walks them through building the tools that build the business and building the process that builds the product. And so in doing, because our product's not our product, by the way, in your case, podcast development and podcast studios and all that, that's not your product. Your product is the process via which you do those things. And so if we start to help the owners see that their process is their product, and then we build those things out so that they can live them out and be liberated from chaos.
So much of what you're talking about, I think, is also applicable to even like online business owners and people who are content creators, because we're putting so much content out into the universe and we're taking in so much content as well. What was the LLVD again? Or LLV?
Latest, loudest voice disease.
Latest, loudest voice disease. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say, oh, well, so and so did this. I just had a conversation with a client the other day, and she's like, oh, I saw that this other person mentioned that they were in the top X percent of podcasts. And they said, oh, you must be getting X amount of downloads too. And I thought, I'm actually not anywhere near that. And then, there goes the spiral, comparing to other people and what other people are doing and what they're doing right or what am I doing wrong. And it's like, so much of what we see and what this latest loudest voice is fluff, and it's surface level stuff. We don't see the struggles behind or the years it has taken to get to this point. I was talking to a friend recently, like, about the whole girl boss phase, and someone had mentioned girl boss recently, and I was like, oh no, that's like the baby entrepreneur talk. Like, no, we don't use that phrase anymore. And they were like, I was thinking, wait a minute, how long have I been in the online space? How long have I been doing the side hustle thing and then turning this into my full-time business? 9 years it's been now. So like thinking back 7 years ago, I'm not at all the person that I am today. And if someone were to see me here today, they're like, oh, wow, you look like you've got it all together and you've got all these things. No, that's 9 years of work and trial and error and businesses that did not pan out to finally be here. It wasn't some overnight success. And it's true. I think we do get so distracted by all of the things. So I love that you do that. And especially for people who maybe aren't as involved in the online space, to get the kind of support where they are, construction workers, and they're just like, I just want to be able to live my American dream, however that looks like for me. But I feel like I'm kind of drowning half the time. So I love that you do that.
By the way, you're 9 years into this. 4% of businesses see their 10th birthday. And the majority of the rationale as to why that is, most people think it's, there's not enough business, the market's bad, whatever. That's not it at all. The majority of people who their business stops before that 10th birthday is because they just stopped themselves. They just got tired, and rightfully so. I would have gotten tired, in the hamster wheel that they were in as well. And it's because they responded to this latest, loudest voice. They could never lock in and go, this is who we are. This is who we serve. And even our podcast, there are weeks we get 100, 300 downloads in a week. We don't care. We just keep going because it's not why we're doing it. Why we're doing it is to bring value to liberate owners from chaos. Our mission has become our centralized piece to be able to look at that ultimately gets us to our vision, which is our destination down there. And so if we looked at our podcast and went, oh, what's our downloads? What's our downloads? Then we're off the mission at that point, because our mission is not to liberate 6 million owners from chaos. It's just to liberate owners from chaos. And so if we're having the privilege to be able to do that, then we're accomplishing that. And in our case, the podcast is there, honestly, to offer some credibility and to give us an outlet. We say that our podcast and anything social for us is air support to our ground game. That's our marketing strategy. So our ground game is where we're able to connect with prospects through the dating of marketing. That's what you do when you market. You're dating. Sales is marriage. Operations is fulfilling the vow of that marriage. And administration is changing the diapers and doing all that stuff we do in families. But marketing is dating. That's where we go. Hey, are we bringing value? And then when somebody hears us at a speaking engagement, or they hear us in one-on-one or direct referral, whatever, now they go out into online and they can find us with some presence things there. So that's why we don't obsess over those numbers for us.
Yeah. And you've clarified that for yourself. And I think that that's so important for podcasters to be so crystal clear. What are your goals? And then, all right, how are you achieving those goals? Or are you trying to juggle too many goals because you're seeing what everybody else is doing? I love that. You are coming up on 750 episodes as we are recording this. First of all, congratulations. That is incredible. Most people don't get that far. What did that first idea of, oh, I think we should start a podcast, what did that look like for you?
So I still had I was working as executive director for a non-governmental organization. I had a desire to I had a friend in my life who would have me come to his office every week for about an hour or so and just go, hey, help me see things. And one day he told me, he said, you help me see things I cannot see. And I was like, ooh, I really like that. And I enjoy doing it. And so I started thinking, God, wouldn't it be great if I could just do a little podcast? And I was listening to a guy named Dan Miller at the time, who has since passed just recently, last year. And he had a podcast called the 48 Days to the Work You Love podcast. And there was others that I was listening to. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then a guy named Pat Flynn, who's kind of a cult hero in the podcast space, he had a free online thing on YouTube that you could start your podcast with that. So I obsessed over that. 2014, I remember watching the videos at my parents' lake dock. They were gone. Our family was up there doing just a little vacation. And I just was consuming this stuff. And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And I was like, I've got to get here. And finally a guy just goes, hey man, just record something, put it up there. Yeah, but I got to have the 3 episodes in the first one. And he's like, stop, just stop. And I was like, but he said I should. And just stop. And he basically told me, it's not about your first 3 episodes. You're not trying to skyrocket to the top of the charts with this thing. What you need is an outlet to be able to take the value that you bring and bring it to other people. And if they listen, they listen. And if they don't, they don't. And so I think it was February, March of 2015 that we put out our first few and then just kept going. They're not great. You still listen to them and they're a little bit garbage. The interviews were interesting. The people I talked to were interesting. And so I first started with interview, highly scripted interviews. Great. I recommend a lot of people do that. I think it's awesome. And then I pivoted to, there was a little app at the time. I don't remember what it was, but it was on your phone. You could be in your car and you could get a high quality recording in your car on your Boss Jock. That's what it was, the Boss Jock app. I just remembered it. And so I was like, man, I could give 3 to 5 minute monologue vignettes this way. And so then I got a whole trail of those. I mean, I was cranking those out. And then I started doing scripted monologues to where I realized that I read this book called They Ask You Answer is the name of it. It's a great book called They Ask You Answer. It's a nice little marketing book. And here's the gist. If they ask, answer it. And there's your content. And so whenever a client, prospect, whatever asks us a question, hey, who do you work with? Hey, how does coaching work? Hey, what's the difference between coaching and consulting? Hey, when you talked about P&Ls, what does that mean? Anytime somebody asks a question, there's the title for your next piece of content. So I'm like, all right, I'll try that. And so what I would do is I would write an article with that. I would title it, and then I would read the article on Facebook Live. And so get this, we could take the article and it became an article. We could take the Facebook Live recording, it became a YouTube. We could rip the audio, it became a podcast. And then we could take the article and put it on LinkedIn and a bunch of, so out of one article, I'd get like 5, 6 different pieces of something. And so we're like, let's just do that for a while. So we did that for 2 or 3 years. Now we're in a season to where one of our other coaches, I'm not even really on the podcast much anymore. I'll come back to it. But one of our other coaches does something called Tuesdays Tools on Purpose. And so she'll talk to a lot of our clients, find out what they're using in tools, and then interview them. So we're able to highlight our clients, highlight some new tools. And so we've got about a 1-year run on that. And that's been super fun as well. So we've just allowed it to become what it needed to become at the time we needed it.
I think everybody needs to go back 30 seconds and listen to that last line you said. You allowed it to be what you needed it to be when you needed it to be that.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And I think that so often, especially as content creators, think, oh, I'm the same person I was 3 years ago and I have to keep doing this the same way. And it's like, no. I remember 3 years ago, I was saying you shouldn't have a limited series podcast. It's a waste of time. Now I'm like, do whatever you want. If that's what you're able to create, then do that. Do what works for you. So my thoughts have changed. And I think if people were to go back to the original 10, 25 episodes of this podcast, they would probably hear me say that. And then as they listen, they would hear my mind shift and me saying, wait a minute, there's more to this. There are more options available to us. And I love what you said about taking questions that your clients have asked. There's a sister podcast to this. We are going to be doing a 52 episode run, kind of semi-limited series of 10 minutes or less answering podcasting questions. Now, this was a goal for me for this year, was I wanted to get heavier with the SEO strategy of the business, finding more ways that our business would be better SEO, search engine optimized, that I'd be able to create content that was just me, but answering podcasting questions. And I'm a generator in my human design, so I can crank out content left and right. Just give me the list of questions. I'll make an outline. Let's go. And so I would batch record, 4 at a time. There's a month's worth, and in about an hour and a half, and I'm done. I just switch my shirt. I've got my YouTube video. I've got my blog post for the website. I've got LinkedIn articles. Then I turned those, when I turned them into LinkedIn articles, I added it to be a subscription newsletter. And now with the subscription newsletter, I think I have 300 subscribers just from the LinkedIn article newsletter thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, I've only been doing this for a year and I've been in the online space for even longer. And I've got not even close to that many engaged subscribers on my, my email list. But I don't really need those because my business is more one-to-one. So it's not even a goal, right? But just
Yes.
being able to see the kind of interactions I've been able to make. I mean, I had people reaching out to me just from those LinkedIn articles and saying, hey, can you talk to my community? Hey, I would love for you to be on my podcast. Wow, that was really thoughtful. I love getting your emails. And it's like, wait, LinkedIn is sending those as emails? That's cool. So like all of this stuff just from a 10-minute or less answering questions about my industry. It is such a powerful way to get our voice out there in a low barrier to entry, right? Like you don't need a $250 microphone to do it. You can literally use a pretty decent $20 mic or even your phone. A lot of these apps are really optimized to make it the best that you can. Things like Riverside allow you to stream live. Like there are so many more tools now than there were, in 2015, 2016, 2017, that it is so much better for podcasters and content creators to get their voices out there. And I love that you're able to say, look, that worked for a season. Cool. And now it's shifting. Now you mentioned something that I want to go back to and dig a little deeper on. And that was this idea that your podcast is the air support for the ground support. Now, you do a lot of in-person speaking. How does that work are you maybe using some of those conversations for the podcast or just directing people back to the podcast? Are people finding you through the podcast and then maybe going to your events, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So here's where this came out of is we currently work with 99 businesses around North America, and about 40 of those have been with us longer than 2 years. We've got probably 5 or 6 that have been with us 9.5 years. They started with us, and then we've got a lot more. So we've got a lot of data to go off of and relationship and that sort of thing. And the number of times that we get asked marketing questions you would think we're a marketing agency and how often we get asked these questions. And what kind of frustrated us for a long time is a lot of our clients would get hit up by marketing agencies promising them the moon. And what the pitch sounded like was, 3 posts a day, 5 keyword searches a week. I'm just making stuff up, but they would kind of put this stuff out there. And our question to our client was always, hey, before you sign up anything, we're all in. If you want to sign up, great. Before you sign anything, just go back and simply ask, what results do you expect in what timeline? And then we're going to go ahead and set the dates to reevaluate the timeline. And at that point, the marketing agency would either start stuttering or just pull out altogether. And we're like, why doesn't anybody want to? And then we realized, wait a second, all the people that I know that are generating meaningful, real leads for reasonably ticket services, whatever that might be in whatever space that you're in, they're spending 5 and 6 figures of money in digital marketing a month, not like a year, but a month. And once that came out, a lot of our clients go, wait a second, if I'm going to spend $100,000 a year on digital marketing, why wouldn't I hire a person full time to do this? Because they've got payroll, they know their numbers, and we help them know their numbers and all this stuff. And so what we started to realize is, wait a second, and this is the part of the game I've never understood. I'm going to pay XYZ Corp. I'm going to pay them $10K a month to go do digital advertising. And then they change the algorithm. And then I continue to pay them. It's so backwards in our economy. If I'm a marketing agency and you're going to pay me $10K a month, I want to make it easier for you to get clients, not harder for you to get clients. And so we started to think more about that. And then we started to look at our offering and we asked, we're a one-on-one coaching firm. So we're not a big mass produced coaching firm. Those are good too. We're just not that. And we thought, we want to meet people in the same way that we coach people. And so if we mass sort of send our marketing, then it would make sense that we're going to mass coach you. But if we're going to be boutique, then it's harder to believe that there's this sort of mass thing. And so we found that stage engagement, speaking, live events, it could be master classes, online webinars. We've not had as much success with those, but you could do that. Or it could be going to a stage with the right people in the audience. Here's the other thing. For us, we reach out to business owners between 3 and 100 employees. We started getting requests from local chambers to come speak. So we'd be like, yeah, this is fantastic. We show up to the chamber and guess who's there? It's not business owners with between 3 and 100 employees. It's either unemployed people looking to get a job, or it's the marketing manager from whatever. Well, guess what? In our world, they don't make decisions that we need them to
Right.
make. And so it turned out it was a real misuse of our time. And quite frankly, a misuse of theirs. They would get a lot of value from us, but they couldn't do anything with it either, because it was their owner that ultimately made the decision. And so what we figured out is, when we're on a stage and we leave, what are you going to do? You're going to look us up. I do it. We all do it. You're going to look us up. And so if we can have our content updated, interesting, not overly thought, just they ask, you answer. Like, let's answer what they're asking. Then when you go to look us up, you'll see that we have content. What we found is I think it's less about sort of the swagger of the content, and it's more that you're giving effort for what's up there. It can't be garbage, but I don't know that it has to be, Audible level quality either for what it is, or Netflix level quality. And so in doing that, people go, yeah, I see your stuff all the time. And when we look back at the last 9.5 years and ask, how many new clients did we get directly from YouTube, from Google, from Facebook, and from these other things? The answer legitimately is zero. And we've spent the ads, like we've done those things. And so for a while, we got upset, but we got over that. And then we were like, hey, let's just use it for what it's there for us. And that is people proactively looking for us. And when they proactively look, they're going to find. But us interrupting folks with what we offer in the price tag, we're going to have to spend 20, 30 to 50K a month. And I'm just not willing. I'd rather go hire a person full time.
Yeah. I think that's so validating too, of like, so this year, one of my things, like I had mentioned, like focusing on the SEO too, but like also spending time doing things that I enjoy doing and that are actually moving my business forward. And that looks like solo episodes, being in smaller spaces, being an expert in a community, doing those types of things, doing those guest speakings, that I get so much more fulfillment than just throwing things out on social media and being like, I hope someone No,
Yeah.
I don't want to spend like it's frustrating. It's annoying. I do not see that the dopamine hit of being in a community and being able to answer those questions and being like, wow, I really know stuff. That was a lot of fun. That, you get way more energy from that than just being like, well, I posted 15 reels or TikToks this week. I hope someone finds me. No, get out there and like talk to people, have conversations with people. And so often, I think too, especially in the online space, there's a lot of like, oh, you have to have a podcast and you have to have an email list and you have to be producing tons of content constantly. It's like, no, dial it back. Do one episode every 2 weeks if you have to.
Yeah.
And push that out into 10 different pieces of content, that one single episode, and go get in people's DMs, go get out and speak on stages, go get in front of your audience and make the money that you're looking to make. And all of the rest of the stuff will come. That's just validating information. Like you said, that's just you showing up and saying, yes, I'm an expert and I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But if you're not making the money you need, then what are you doing?
Yeah. And that barometer we've got to pay attention to. We had a lot of people in the past years who have gone and gotten certifications, coaching certifications from kind of guru coaches, which are out there. And for the most part, it's good. They're doing good work in helping offer insight and that sort of thing. But there's a misnomer, and that is, if I go get certified, I will get clients. And there's a belief of that. And the response to that is no. If you go get clients, then you will get clients. If you get certified, that's of no guarantee of anything. And so the idea of getting out, you mentioned email lists. This is interesting. It just dawned on me that our first 7 years in business, we never broke 2,000 emails on our email list. Never. We did online stuff. We did lead magnets. We did the whole thing. We started speaking on stages. Our email list now 2.5 years later is 41,000. But some of you are like, well, that doesn't scale. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, but if you want to scale digitally, you're going to have to pony up the money, because that's how the thing works. And that is a lot of money for the risk that you're able to do. And I've got a dear friend, he owns a marketing agency. And I said, hey, Derek, what's an average marketing spend? This might be helpful for your audience. And he basically said 3% to 13% of what you call your real revenue. So that's if you have a high cost of goods business, which you don't, But like if you're a construction company, you got 70% cost of goods. Your real revenue is your top line minus your cost of goods and whatever's left to run the business. That's your real revenue. So 3 to 13% of your real revenue. And so if your revenue is 100 grand a year, then it's 3 grand to 13,000. If it's $1 million a year, then it's 30 grand to 130,000 or whatever. It kind of gives you that range. 13 grand is very aggressive. 3 grand is not very aggressive at all. And so starting to look at that and start with a bucket and go, okay, if I allotted a bucket this big to get my message out, let's do away with the term marketing real quick.
Right.
And by the way, there's 4 major systems in every business. In this order: marketing, sales, operations, administration. Those are the only 4 systems. What about HR and all? They all fit in those 4. Marketing is always number 1. You cannot sell to somebody who doesn't know you exist. Marketing is letting yourself out there to exist. So if you said, okay, out of that 1 major system, I'm going to allot 5%. And so, okay, my revenue last year was 100 grand or 500 grand or 5 million or whatever it was. 5% of that is X. If I had this bucket of money, what would I do with it? So instead of looking at the proposal that's on your desk right now and go, hey, should I spend 5K a month? Put that off for this side for a second. If you had to decide where you could go and you know that you would get new leads and you had that bucket of money, where would you spend it? And you start there. And then all of a sudden the social media tools become just this cool little value that you get to document. The other hidden agenda that I've got for the podcast is I want my kids and grandkids to hear my voice when I'm gone. And so this allows us to be able to do that so that I would love to have that from my genealogy. But now we've got this tool. And so that's the other little hidden agenda that I've got.
Yeah, having something, I think, for your kids to look back on is so impactful. I'm someone who lost both my parents by the time I was 31. And so, like, to have that, I would have loved something like that, to look back on for those memories and those interactions. And even just to hear behind the scenes and their thoughts, I think is so powerful and impactful. It's something you can leave your kids too. Scott, this has been so much fun. Like, I feel like we're both kind of like on our soapboxes and like, don't do it. Like, really think before you're just throwing your money at these tools and doing things that aren't serving you just because someone else who's very loud is telling you that you should be doing. No, stop. Go back to your goals. What are your goals? Is this going to help you achieve your goals? Yes, no, flow chart it. Like, do that way. Really be strategic. So this has been so wonderful. Where can people get to know you, hang out with you, maybe hear you speak?
Yeah, I don't hang out much online because part of what brings owners into chaos is distraction. And there was a study out of University of California, Santa Barbara, that said when you're in a deep flow of work and you get distracted, just a buzz on your phone, it says it takes 23 minutes to get back to the level of depth that you were in before you got knocked off. And the problem is it happens recurringly all throughout the day. And so that's why we don't feel like we get anything done. So I don't hang out a ton online, but we have an online presence for sure. And if you go to mybusinessonpurpose.com, you can find our podcast there, our YouTube channel. My book is up there, Let Your Business Burn. You can go check that out. We've also got an assessment tool for any business owners. So if you go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy, and it's about a 5-minute assessment, and it'll give you a back end numerical value on the back end systematic health of your business. Not a lot of those out there. And so it's a pretty cool little thing that you can use to just sort of have a sobriety wake-up call to go, where am I at with the backside of my business that nobody sees?
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. And we'll make sure we have those linked in the show notes for anyone who's driving or doing other things as they're listening. Scott, thank you so much.
Yeah, Alicia, thank you.